Hi, how are you? Come here. Hi. Hi, hello, how are you? Welcome back to my channel. I just wanted to come on here and do my January wrap up. I'm a few days late, but that's besides the point. So, for the month of January, it was very successful. I read 11 books. It consisted of 2 audiobooks and yes, 9 physical books. So the total page count was 2,974. If you can see me looking down, by the way, it's because I have the little notes written down so I can remember all these stats. Total hours, because I did have 2 audiobooks, as I mentioned, was 22 and a half hours. And then my average rating was 4.75, which obviously is a really successful reading month in my opinion, and I bought 7 books, and I'll explain why I bought 7 books even though I'm really trying not to buy books, but that's again besides the point. And a total of 6 library books. I did have some DNFs, so I figured I would go ahead and get those out of the way. The first one is called Adelaide by Genevieve Wheeler. I got like, I want to say I got like 60 pages into it, and it just wasn't. I'm trying really hard this year to DNF books that I don't enjoy because I just would rather be reading something that I enjoyed. And it wasn't bad by any means. I did like the writing. It just wasn't something that was sparking my interest at the moment. So maybe I'll go ahead and pick it up. I did pick it up from the library book, so that was good. The other one that I'm really sad about that I didn't like was Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. I have heard a lot of people talk about this book, and I had really high hopes for it. I didn't like the main character. I didn't there is just something about the main character, I don't even remember her name, that I just didn't really connect with. And I don't know what that says about me. I would like to try some of Ali Hazelwood's other books, like Check and Mate, I think is her young adult book. But that was the first book I've ever tried from Ali Hazelwood, and I wouldn't be opposed to trying other books, especially since I didn't really the writing wasn't what the issue was for me, although it did have a lot of like very current language, which kind of sometimes doesn't date very well, but I would still like to try some other things from her. And then the other one was My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. Um, this one just sounded interesting, and then when I picked it up, I was just a little bit bored while I was reading it. This was another one that I think I got like 50 pages in, and I was just still bored by the 50-page mark, which I know is kind of. I've heard a lot of people talk about this book and how good it is, which is kind of sad. I mean, maybe one day I'll pick it up again, but that's fine. And then the other one, which is a little bit surprising, is Spy Family Volume 5 by Tatsuya Endo, which I really enjoy the anime, so I've been wanting to read the manga Spy Family, and it's basically about this undercover agent named Twilight, who then goes under the name Lloyd. He has to basically get together this family to try to win over somebody to try to get into his like inner circle basically. So he ends up finding a wife and a daughter, and it's really cute. Like, it's a really wholesome anime, and I really like it. I'm just a little bit bored from reading the manga. That's one of the reasons why. It's the main reason why I put it down. But the anime itself is not boring at all. So I would definitely recommend picking it up if you or like watching it and also reading it. It's just, I have to say that I think I kind of ruined it for myself because I have watched it. I think that I would have been better off reading it and then watching it, and I feel like I would have had a better luck reading the actual manga. So I just wanted to get my DNFs out of the way. So we'll go ahead and get into the 2 audiobooks that I read. And I don't have a physical copy of the first one, which is Sword Heart by T. Kingfisher. I gave this one a 5 star. This book was about a older woman who ends up being, her husband dies and she goes and lives with her um some of his family. I think she goes and lives with some of his family and ends up like taking care of this older gentleman, and then when he dies he ends up leaving everything to Hala because she's been the one taking care of him. And then his family, the older person who passed away that I can't remember the name of, get really mad and they basically hold Hala against her will and they like lock her in the house and they're trying to convince her to marry, I think it would be her cousin, which this takes place like really long. It's like a historical fantasy romance story until she'll just like agree to marry this person, marry this guy, and so the it's not a spoiler, but the book and starts out with Hala basically trying to figure out she can't get out of the situation, so she decides to take things into her own hands, so to speak, and she takes a sword down from the wall that's like mounted up there, and when she opens it, a literal like Viking guy, comes out of the sword and is like basically belongs or is basically the will fight for whoever is the sword wielder. So his name is Zarkus, and he finds out that Hala's in danger or that she's being held there against his will. So then he like breaks her out, and that's where the story begins. I'm not spoiling anything for that. Um, this was a really cute story. Again, it was a 5 star. It's the first thing from T. Kingfisher that I've ever read. Starting off really, really strong. I really want to read a lot of other stuff by her. I really like the fantasy element. I like the found family as well. Like there's basically this creature that's almost kind of like an otter that talks, and he has an ox. Also, one of the other reasons why I like it is because there's also like a political aspect, and it's just a really good adventure found family. There's Zarkus, who he's in this sword, so he's having to learn a lot of things about, their current world, which again, this would take place, I think, in like the 16 or 1700s, if I'm remembering correctly. And it is just a really cute story. The person who narrates the audiobook did a fantastic job. This one was a little bit of a longer audiobook, but I definitely recommend checking out the audiobook. I definitely would also like to buy a physical copy to keep in my collection, but it was a really good, really, really good T. Kingfisher book to start out with. The next audiobook that I do have a physical copy for is You Shouldn't Have Come Here by Geneva Rose. I bought this physical copy because I gave this a 3 star, but I found this in my like local indie bookstore and I really wanted a copy, and I have to say I really enjoyed the audiobook. I don't know who's narrated it. It's a dual narrator because there's two different point of views, which is really nice. And this was a thriller, kind of would fall into a little bit of like a dark romance aspect as well, more of a thriller mystery. It's about this young woman, Grace Evans, who she just needs a break from her like everyday life. She's in New York, it's constantly going, 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 and so she books an Airbnb out. She books an Airbnb on a ranch in the middle of Wyoming, where she meets Calvin Wells, who and so it's just a little town in Wyoming, again, a lot different from the scenery that she's in, and she's just wanting to kind of go somewhere different. And from the beginning, you kind of have there's something up with this town, there's something up with these people, there's something more going on, but you just can't really figure out what it is. Obviously, it's a thriller. Yeah, this one was one of those ones that you keep thinking that you know what's going on, but then you don't. And I really did enjoy the twist at the end. But it gave like that eerie feeling. It gave that you don't really know. It's just kind of like, again, creepy in the sense that the whole town something just doesn't seem right with the main guy. And there's also the main person, Grace. You don't really know a lot about her other than she's trying to escape like her busy life. So there's a lot that we're in the dark about her as well. So it's just a really good thriller. So I would definitely recommend the audiobook. Also, it's not a very long read at all. The audiobook, I read it, it's like I think only like 8 hours, which reads really fast. But this one is only 289 pages, so this one you could probably read in like a sitting if you really wanted to, but I would definitely recommend this one. The next section that I want to do, because I'm making this a goal for myself in 2024, is to read more library books. So I did get a total of 6 library books, but the 2 that I did actually end up reading, because a few of them were DNFs, was The House in the Pines by Anna Reyes, and I gave this one 4 stars. This one was also another thriller mystery. This one is basically about this young woman. She lost her friend very tragically, and this is a few years later, like after college, and she's at home and she's watching TV, or she's on her computer and she sees a news story and she sees this person die exactly how her best friend did with the same exact person, and she becomes basically completely enveloped into trying to figure out what actually happened to her friend, because it's strange that this random woman died in the exact same way as her best friend did years ago. So it just becomes a mystery. And also the narrator, I don't know if she'd be considered an unreliable narrator, but she's going through like withdrawal. So there are some things that, the way that they're being explained, you're kind of not really sure if it's really happening or it's because of the withdrawal symptoms and some of the side effects of what she's going through. And I do have to say that this was a really good thriller book. I do have to say that the twist at the end was a little, I do have to say weird, but it was like a good weird. And like I said, I give this one 4 stars, so I definitely think this one is worth checking out as well. And then the other library book that I checked out, which was one of my favorites of the month, because I had two, I couldn't pick just between one this month, was The Cherished by Patricia Ward. And this book was so good. It had to do, again, it was taking place in like a small town. It's about this young, I believe she's 16. Her name is Jo, and she, I'm not spoiling anything by saying this, but her grandmother ends up passing away and leaves her farm that's out in the middle of nowhere, basically in this tiny town, to Jo when she turns 18. And so basically, it's about her and her mom going to this ranch, ranch farm, and just, looking at the state of it and what they want to do. And they like, the mom's pushing to try to like sell it and get it appraised and stuff like that. But when they go to this town, Jo realizes that there's something really weird about it, and there's something going on, and it's just, again, it's just an eerie town. It's weird. And the other part of this book is that her dad kind of went crazy, and she's starting to think that some of the things that he went crazy and was saying might not be 100% just him going crazy. Like, there might be some truth behind it. And again, there's just a lot of like mysteries. This would kind of I would have fallen into like horror mystery, and it has a little sense of like magical realism a little bit, because of some of the other elements. I don't really want to spoil it because, again, I don't want to spoil it. But I would definitely recommend picking this one up because it is a mystery thriller. I don't really want to give too much away. I definitely think this is one book that would really be good in going blind. It reads really fast, and it wasn't a very long. I think it was like 330 pages, but it was really easy to read. I really like the characters, and I really like the just once you find out what's going on in the town, I thought it was really kind of cool. And I liked the kind of spin on what was going on, because it was kind of not your typical thing that you see in regards to what's going on that you are seeing in most recent like books and stuff like that. So I really did enjoy it. So this next section are the ones that I already had in my, or I had borrowed from my aunt, or that I already had. And the first one is going to be a few books together, and it is, I finally read all of the Heartstopper novel or graphic novels. And when I say that this series took my life over, that would be an understatement. I absolutely love these graphic novels so much that the reason why I bought so many books is because, like I said, my aunt lent them to me because I wanted to read them finally, and I went and bought my own copies because I loved them so much. I loved everything about this series. I loved the series that's on Netflix. I thought it was such a good book to show adaptation. Obviously, there was like some parts were a little like, I don't want to say cringy, but like they're teenagers, so there are some things that are just. But I thought it was so good. It made me feel all warm and fuzzy inside, and it made me. It was just so good, and I have not a little bit. I have an obsession with it. So much so that I even got my sister into it, and she drew me this really cute like collage of Nick and Charlie that I had printed so I can put it up in my on my library shelves. But so we have become so obsessed about it, so obsessed with it. And if you don't know anything about this, this is basically about a young man who he is out and he is openly gay, which was not an easy road. Like he got bullied for it, and he meets this gentleman in his class named Nick, and basically it just starts off this relationship between them, and like a friendship and stuff like that, and then it just goes over the course of them throughout like the rest of high school and even into like Nick um, eventually looking for colleges and stuff like that. And this there are so many reasons why I really enjoyed the series, and one of the reasons why is the first reason is because I really enjoy the characters that Alice Oseman, which is who wrote the series, I really enjoy the way that she writes characters. She writes them so humanly. I don't think that's a word, but she just writes them so humanistic. Like they're not, I don't roll my eyes when I'm reading about them. Like again, they're teenagers, so some things you're like, okay, but I don't, and like the way that like they react to things and the way that they talked and the way that their like interactions went, I just it reminded me so much of like how I was as a teenager, and she just wrote them so well. The other thing that I really like about this book is how it handled the topic of mental health, like things like eating disorders or self-harm, which there are some trigger warnings that eventually in the series it does go on to mention things like bullying and uh, like I said, self harm and eating disorders. So if those are things that you are a little bit sensitive to, like go into it um, cautiously. But uh, I think that it's very realistic in how it talks about it as somebody who deals with those, has dealt with, and is still dealing with those, like with mental health struggles. That I just really appreciated how it was written, and I also really appreciated how the author wrote. She didn't just write it from the perspective of somebody who's dealing with like mental health struggles. Like she also wrote it from the perspective of somebody who doesn't necessarily know how to help a loved one through it. And I think that again, as somebody who has personally dealt with that, there have been people around me who they have said that they don't know how to help, like, or but they want to know. And you kind of deal with that with Nick. He like openly says like I don't well, openly, like he writes it, but in the book it mentions that he wants to help, but he doesn't know how to, and he even like goes to his mom and he's like, "What do I do?" And he looks up things like suggestions online of like what they could do, and he like have it's just I really like that because I think that sometimes we're so focused on like, which is really good. I think that we have a lot of media that focuses on like a person who's struggling with mental health, but I feel like we don't have a lot of stuff that talks about how hard it is to have somebody that you really care about and that you love dealing with something, and it could be anything that you just don't really know how to deal with or how to approach or how to help because you don't want to make the situation worse. And I really liked how the author approached that subject, and I also really liked the friendships that are written in here, and I really like how I also just really like how it wasn't like the real like the sometimes you see in books like this where just everybody comes together and everybody's like, oh yeah, no, that like we have no issues with you being like openly gay and stuff like that. And I really like how this book, or like openly transgender and stuff like that. And I'm really like how this book wasn't just like, it wasn't just like, oh yeah, no, like everybody's so happy, everybody's accepting of it. It was very much so like a journey, and it showed different viewpoints of people who aren't accepting of it, or it showed like a person who maybe is still struggling with trying to figure out their own sexuality themselves. And I just really liked how this author approached every single subject, and I read these all really fast. My husband, because when I borrowed them from my aunt, she only had the first four because the fifth one literally just it came out really recently, and so I had powered through the first four, and then I was like telling my husband that I was really sad because I didn't have the fifth one, and so he ended up surprising me, and he came home with the fifth one, and I like immediately read it in like an hour, and it was such I really liked this one too. I thought this was I believe there's supposed to be another one after this. I don't know if it's supposed to be the last one or not, but I really think this was a really good continuation or a next or another installment in this series, and I'm really excited to now read other stuff from Alice Oseman. Like I just got Loveless, which is right here. Um, which is also by Alice Oseman, but this one is an actual just novel. It's not like a graphic novel, um, which I'm really excited to read. So yeah, I definitely recommend picking this one up, especially because it's a fast read, and I really like the art style of it, and I just really like the diverse amount of characters in it, and just the diverse or all the different topics that are addressed in here. I just would really recommend picking this up. And then also the show is absolutely wonderful. I think they picked such good people to play Nick and Charlie and all the other people in um, the show. I just it was such a good adaptation in my opinion. The other one that is I think it would technically be part of the Heartstopper series is the Nick and Charlie novella, and I really like it because it's like day and then night on the back. But I picked this one up because this is just a, like I said, a continuation of um, the Heartstopper graphic novels. But again, it's just a short little novella. I think it's I read this one really fast again. I think it's like a whole 192 pages. This one has to deal with the aspect of when Nick decides to go to college and how Charlie is handling it, and also how Nick is handling it, and just some of um, the topics that come into play when somebody that you care about is, moving away because of college or whatever reason. And I really liked, again, I just really like the way that Alice Oseman writes her characters. She writes them so realistic, she writes them so relatable, and the outcome is that, because Nick is older, and when, Nick is deciding like Charlie feels left behind, which, is a valid feeling, and Nick is just excited, but like it becomes a situation of like he wants to be excited, but he's also sad about leaving Charlie, and it becomes a very tricky situation to navigate. And I just really liked how it was handled and the topics that were handled in it, and I just feel like they were really realistic. But yeah, I gave this one um, a 5 star as well. I gave also all of Heartstopper a 5 star, all of them. I'm maybe biased, but I just really, really, really like them. Solitaire has, which I haven't read yet, has his sister is the main character, and then I believe so. And then the other one is This Winter, which is another, I believe, novella that is part of this Heartstopper world. So um, I definitely want to pick those two up. And then the last book that I read for January, I hope I haven't been saying July. For January, was also tied for my favorite book of January, and it's Off the Hook by Julie Olivia. And might I say that this is the cutest cover. I love this cover, and this is also my favorite author. And so, my husband actually got me the like a signed copy for Christmas. So I am slowly working on like building up my, because I started reading Julie Olivia's books on Kindle, and so I've been slowly trying to build up like my physical library of hers. But I like specifically waited because like I didn't read it when it first came out, which was a shame. And then it became close to Christmas, and I like told my husband like I was like, please get me this. If you're gonna get me anything for Christmas, please get me this. And so so he got it for me, and again, it's signed because all of my other books are signed. Um, but this one is a modern day retelling of Peter Pan. But this is specifically a version where for when Wendy ends up with Captain Hook. And I know that sounds really weird, but just bear with me. It is the cutest book ever, and it's a contemporary romance, and there's not any like fantasy elements. It's just that there's a lot of things that like obviously Peter and Wendy. His name is Jasper. So like again, there's just some other elements that but it's not like a fantasy book or anything. But and it takes place. It's a small town romance, and he is a single dad, and there's a slight age gap. Like I think she's 26, and I think he's like in like 34 or something like that. So just like a small age gap. And basically the premise of this book is that Wendy is a school teacher, but the way that her pay is that she doesn't get paid during the summer, and she basically needs to find an income for during the summer because she won't get paid during those months, and she ends up taking on babysitting his son, which is I don't think it's like one of her students. And then, as you know, he's kind of like it's like a grumpy sunshine. It was a really cute book, and there's just a lot of the reason why I like Julie Olivia's books is the same reason why I like Alice Oseman's book is that her characters are so realistic. The romance doesn't make me roll my eyes like, okay, like that was ridiculous. And like I said, there's a lot of topics in here. It's not just like it's a fluffy romance, but it also covers topics of like there's grief, because like this main character has lost um his best friends, and how it affects him. And then also the other main character, like she comes from not a great family situation. And there's also topics of like anxiety and social anxiety, and just trying to PTSD and dealing with those kinds of things. And I just really like the fact that even though these are like fluffy romances, that all of her books also tie in just everyday struggles that we're dealing with. Like again, the main character is somebody who she just can't, she needs to figure out how to afford to keep paying rent. And I just really enjoyed this book. And again, it's this is the first one in a series, which is the Never Harbor series. And I'm the other one I think is coming out in June. I could be very wrong. Which is Out with the Tide. So it's going to be following like the other people in the family. So, but I would definitely recommend picking this one up, and it was definitely a 5-star read. And I've loved everything that I've read by her. And again, you can't get any cuter with this cover. So yeah, that was everything that I read in January. Again, overall, a very successful month. Hopefully, next month will be just as successful. But that's all I had for you today. So thank you so much for watching my channel, and I hope to see you soon. Bye. Rereading this, and I have a bookmark in there. That's where my other bookmark went.